Grand evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Thread of Life. Glad that you're here. Glad that you came to listen and to be heard, and glad we're sharing energy. Um, this episode is called Understanding Traditions and Creating Intentions. We'll jump right in. This is a quote from Terrence McKenna. It says, "If you don't have a plan, you become a part of somebody else's plan." That speaks for itself. Next, I like to define intention. Intention is something that you want and plan to do. So, the question I believe we need to reevaluate and ask ourselves daily is, what are our intentions? What are our plans? See how they relate. We have to have intentions behind everything that we do, every move that we make, and there are intentions behind everything. So we'll get more into that. Let's next define tradition. A tradition is a belief, principle, or way of acting that people in a particular society or group have continued to follow for a long time, or all of these beliefs, etc., in a particular society or group. And that's from the Cambridge Dictionary. So, in our society, I know in the society and culture that I grew up in, there are different traditions that I followed blindly, had no clue what they meant. Um, the first group being holidays or so-called holy days. The biggest one I know, as me being a former Christian or practicing those beliefs, was Christmas. You know, as a kid, we get these gifts. We'd have the tree. We, have dinner. You have family and friends come over. It's a time of celebration. But as I got older, I could see the stress surrounding this holiday. Um, it was I gotta get this, I gotta do this, I gotta give this. So as I got older and recently I opted out of participating in that. Um, it's not that difficult for me. I do have kids, and the kids usually they get what they want most of the time, as long as you have, the grades and you are practicing your manners, you can get pretty much what you want. But when I started to look at my actions sometimes and those around me, it was like we were out on Christmas Eve, like me and my kid's father, we were buying gifts and had to get this and had to get that. Like that's not what it should be about. But of course, it can turn into this from us or people following blindly or following a belief that has been set into place. Um, so I'll just say, like, I mean, going into debt for a holiday, no, well, no. Christmas or any time, any day is a good day to spend time with your friends and family, celebrate your loved ones, enjoy a meal with your loved ones. Christmas can be any day, but an emphasis is placed on that particular day. So let's go to another holiday, Thanksgiving. This I looked this up. Celebrated for nearly 400 years. What was Thanksgiving? When Europeans and other colonizers came to the Americas and basically took the land from people who had already lived here. I mean, it is what it is. That's where the holiday originated. Now it's become this day of celebrating and feasting. I mean, do we need Thanksgiving to have? Do we need a Thanksgiving to have a feast? Every day we should be thankful. We should be thankful for the foods that we are consuming. We should be thankful and speaking and manifesting that the foods are fulfilling our bodies and nutritious to our bodies. But we celebrate this holiday. What are our intentions? We're celebrating something that's steeped in a history of violence and deceit. So what is that? That was their intention. So what does that say about us, that we continue to celebrate this? So we have to be very careful with our intentions and with our actions. Let's look at the 4th of July, celebrated since 1777. I'm a person of color. I haven't done my genealogy yet, but I know my great grandfather was from Haiti. My great grandmother, she was so-called indigenous to this land, and they weren't free. They didn't have rights. Land was taken from my grandmother's people, my great grandmother's people. My great grandfather was from Haiti. Haiti is still under control of Europeans. So what are we celebrating? But on the 4th of July, we, not everybody in the culture, we go, let's get fireworks, let's eat this food, let's barbecue, let's grill. And I was a big participant in that. Very big. I'm not gonna lie and say I wasn't, but once we become aware, even the grilling of food, we're going out and barbecuing, we're taking this charcoal. The charcoal, as it cooks the food, it releases toxins, but as the food, cooks, and I used to like hot dogs and stuff and give it crisp, make it crispy. When it gets that burnt on it, that's a carcinogen. That black stuff, that's carcinogens. We're eating these carcinogens, taking these toxins into our bodies, because we're listening, or we're following traditions that our society has said, this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do. Another big one that I have a huge problem with, Halloween. So my kids all the time, this year, I did relent, and I bought them, a little piece of costume, whatever. What are we doing on Halloween? This is a day of celebration of murder, literal. It's not even hidden. It's nothing hidden about it. Murder, death, blood. Let's scare each other. Let's the horror films. What? And this is a holiday for kids or for whoever. This is a day where literally people pretend to be murderers, pretend to be killers. For what? What is the intention? What is the intention behind this holiday? Not only that, we're giving our kids candy, all this sugar. Diabetes is a huge killer in this country. Obesity. Look at our kids. Look at the people in this country versus the people in another country. How obese, how overweight, how sick are we? And I'm not gonna say we, but how sick are people in this country that we have a whole holiday where you're just eating sweets, being fed sweets. I mean, even at school, that's a whole other story. Another holiday that's big in the Black community is Easter. I looked it up, and it said that Easter, those parades of wearing, clothes started in New York and was founded on a superstition that wearing new clothes at Easter time meant good luck for the remainder of the year. How much money do Black people go and spend on Easter outfits and things? Like, people who don't even go to church somehow it's twisted into this religious holiday, the resurrection. How many people that don't even go to church go and have to have a new outfit for Easter? Why? Why? What is the purpose of this tradition? What does it do for our community? Once again, what is the intention behind this? So these traditions have already been laid out for us. And that's a problem. That's a problem, because we are following something that we have no idea the meaning of, the hidden meanings. We don't even look past what is put in front of us. Like, we see this and we think there's nothing else behind it. That doesn't make sense to me at all. So in the compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Mr. Billycarson, something struck me that was read. And in there, And Leo, who is said to have been a Mesopotamian god who may be masqueraded as God on this planet, but was not God, the creator, the all, but had access to higher technologies than the people who were currently on the planet at the time and presented as God. But in Leo, planned for all time. And Leo set in a lot of systems that are in place now. And these are things that we abide by. Um, for someone, then the bigger picture is who plans for all time? Why aren't we planning for all time? When I heard that, that really struck me because we will barely plan. I mean, we won't even plan for our own deaths. We leave, our families with debt, unfinished business, don't have wills and testimony, and I'm working on this. But as I become aware, it's we have a duty to share this with others. This is how we are of service. Um, we're not. What are we planning for? The weekend? Next month? Are we even planning for next year? Are we planning for 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200? What is the legacy that we're leaving behind? A legacy is something that is part of our history that is going to remain, or that remains from an earlier time. What is our legacy? But the legacy has to come from planning, and planning comes from our intentions. Okay, so we need to separate ourselves from a lot of these traditions. Um, if you separate, but research, do your research, number one. And then you can decide if if it's something people want to participate in. I'm not telling anybody what to do with their lives, but we have to understand why we're doing things. We cannot continue to take things for face value and be trusting and think this is all going to work out, because look where we're at. As people of color, we are, we are like the lowest ring on the ladder hierarchy of people. And not saying that, there should be no separation of color and whatnot, but we have to. There's a whole universe. There's a whole world, and we have just as much right as anyone else. So we need to put ourselves in a position to achieve that and to receive that. So we have to take things seriously, and we have to create intentions. And I believe intentions are directly related to our manifestation. To manifest, we have to have that thought, and the thought comes from intention. I mean, we have to know what we're doing, where we're headed, where we're going. Um, so as we talk about legacy, I want to talk about the royal family. Um, the royal family, known as the firm. Now let me just pull this up right here. One second here. Okay. Sorry about that. So, the royal family have put a lot of things in place. And okay, here it is. I had it pulled up, but it kind of slid off on me. So, when the queen recently died, the question arose of her estate and the inheritance. So, the title of this article says Prince William just inherited a 685-year-old estate worth $1 billion. $1 billion. That, I mean, what now? Tell me, what kind of planning do we think that they had, or what kind of planning have they, set into place. Um, the royals are very secretive with their holdings and the values of their properties. I mean, because who would want that to be known? I mean, they have these public positions, but they also have a lot of private holdings. So the royals family wealth is estimated to be about 21 billion with land, property, and investments. Um, the interesting part is that there was a deal made. Um, was it in 1993 that secured the that has secured the wealth of the royal family. They made a deal with the government in the UK that they would pay individual taxes in turn, that their properties and other assets would not be subject to the inheritance tax, of which I believe is 40% there. They wanted to ensure that, what do they call, their estate and their wealth wasn't sliced up like salami, or some term that they use, um, saying that if more than one monarch died and they had to pay that inheritance tax, again, within a certain amount of time, it would take away a big chunk of their assets and their holdings. The point is, for them to make that deal or make that arrangement with the government over there, what kind of foresight are they having? Is it really foresight, or are they thinking? Are they planning? They set intentions for their family and said, "Hey, we're not, we're not gonna. It took us all this time to accumulate this. We're not losing it. So guess what? We're gonna make this deal." This was in 1993. So what? 20 years later, 30 years later, almost. That they planned. They planned to secure their legacy, and that's what they're doing. I mean, we have to look around to see these things. Um, Mitsubishi has a 300-year business plan. That's a company. A company has a 300-year business plan. So we, as individuals who have families that we love, care about children, cousins, nieces, and nephews, son. I mean, what are we doing? Are we planning for them, or are we just, hey, I'm gonna do what I need to do, and that's it? No, we can't. We don't want to do that. We don't want to leave our families destitute. We don't want to. We can see what lack of direction, lack of intention has gotten us. Traditions aren't going to save us. Doing the same thing our parents did, our grandparents did. We've done that generation after generation. Where did it get us? There are some people who are successful, who have plans in place, and that's great. But the majority, on a large scale, we don't, and that's something that we need to work on. Matsushita, parent company of Panasonic, this article says, took things to extremes. Their founder talked about a 700-year plan for the company, which would unfold in the 7 ages. A 700-year plan for a company. I mean, it's mind-blowing, because I've made some business plans, and it was okay, where do you see yourself a year, 5 years, 10 years, 500 years? Because I was a person that I'm just looking, what's face value. I'm not seeing like, oh yeah, this is just this. No, we need this. We need unity. We need force. Yeah, we have a hand, and we can do things that, but what else can we do? We cannot continue to look at things from one perspective. We have to look not only with our eyes, like we have to look with our whole being. We're not just our physical, um, five senses. And that brings us to uh, a another workshop that I listened to by David Icke. Um, and he says to separate the body mind from expanded states of consciousness. Once you go into expanded states of awareness, you are going out of this frequency realm that cooperates and is in control of information. Once you start expanding your awareness into a greater and greater swath of the infinite field of consciousness, you start to see things and understand things. Put the dots together in ways that those that are in five sense mode, that see everything as a part separate from everything else, can't do. So I had to really listen and break that down. Um, the five sense mode is what we see, touch, hear, taste, feel. Those are experiences of the physical, yes. But what about the non-physical? What physical? What about the metaphysical? What about the things that we can't see? I like to. The first example I always think of is the wind. We can't see the wind, but we can feel it. We can feel it blow against us. We can't see it move. We can see the effects of it. Um, what about heat? I mean, we can see fire, but we can be warmed by the sun. Then that's a feeling. What about magnetism? We can't see magnetism, but we see the effects of it. So there are many things in the universe that we see the effects of gravity, that we see the effects of, but we can't necessarily touch, taste, feel, or maybe we can with one of them, but it doesn't make it any less real. Um, so we have to step out of the five sense mode. And this is what he's saying, and I agree. And he says the worst nightmare of this cult is for an awakening of humanity from the prison cell of the five senses, body, mind, into the expanded states of awareness. And that's why they work generation after generation so hard to stop. That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me as to why these foolish traditions have carried on, why the schools are the way they are, subpar, why these transportation systems are the way they are. You have to travel. Here in Detroit, people, we have a bus. We still have a bus system. You want to get to work, you have to maybe get up 2-3 hours early to catch the bus to work. It's 2023. China is talking about building a train, a space like train through a tunnel system to the moon, and we still have people who have to catch the bus to make a living. Um, it's ridiculous, but this is why things have continued the way they are. If we as people had in society had more free time to think, to research, to feel, I think that this prison that we're in, this mental prison, we can, and we will, we would burst out of it. Almost instantaneously, because when you have people, you have one person doing something individually, and another person doing something individually, and another person doing something individually, then the collective is doing the same thing. Now we're all doing it individually, but as a collective, we're all doing the same thing. We don't worry about what this person's doing, what that person's doing. We do what we need to do. This person does what they need to do, and we're all acting as a group, even though we're not grouped together. But by us thinking, being able to ask questions, find answers, research, that is how we break out of the cell. But we're kept in such entropy and disorder. Chaos. We're constantly in a cycle. Gotta get the kids here. Gotta do this. Gotta go to work. I may have to catch the bus here. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get here with the car, and I gotta do this. Like, if things were put into place, the technology, for us to run as an efficient society, we would have far more time to discuss and problem solve. Um, not only problems for the individual, but problems of humanity. But once again, this is what, some people are working very hard to stop. So that was another, yeah, this was a pretty in-depth thing. I was listening to it. I just had to keep stopping and taking notes. So he continues on to, let me go back. Okay. And I'll read this. And this is from David Icke. I hope I'm saying his name right. It was the Manifest Destiny workshop on Forbidden Knowledge TV, which is Billy Carson's channel. Um, I'm so glad that I subscribed to that. Like, when I kept coming across Billy's videos on YouTube, I'm just like, I was blown away. And it's just like, okay, this guy is this guy's coming with some information that I kind of, had kind of heard some of the stuff before, but some of the stuff is just like an emoji that taking it, blowing the top of their head off. Like, it was like that. So, just give me 1 second. Pull it up here. But yeah, it was this Manifest Destiny workshop, and there was also great information from Dr. Jaleesa, who talks about, health and wellness and what our, what physical ailments may be linked to our emotions. And, it was just amazing. So if you guys are not subscribers, subscribe to Forbidden Knowledge TV. It's a network. There's an app. Great information. I'm always learning something. So